Hey guys, what's up? It's Armando from MandoReviews, and today I'm going to be reviewing The Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 1. So The Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 1 is the direct sequel to Catching Fire, the second installment of the Hunger Games series. I highly recommend that before you see this movie, you at least know what's going on within the first two Hunger Games films, because I know that if I hadn't seen it, I would have been completely lost. Like I said, this movie picks up directly after Catching Fire, and it's really showing how the districts are trying to rebel against the Capitol and the President. Katniss Everdeen's job is to become the symbol, the Mockingjay, which is the leader of this rebellion in its districts. And now this movie really takes a toll, and it focuses more on the heavy political and propaganda side of the Hunger Games instead of the two violent, more fighting style mixes that the first two movies did. In the first movie you had that it was all about the Hunger Games. The second movie swapped this out just a little bit, but there was still action, there was still a motif of the Hunger Games and survival, but you see that rebellion starting to grow. Mockingjay Part 1, there's almost absolutely no action, no real violence, however you start to see those riots and the political beliefs that everybody's having and the districts trying to overthrow their awful government. I liked how this movie stuck to the novels because really that is what the Hunger Games is about. It's showing and exposing the government for its awful torture towards its people, how its mistreatment is really causing everybody to rebel and question whether or not their leadership is intact. Looking at it from a movie standpoint, the Mockingjay Part 1 installment of this series doesn't live up to the expectations that I had ever since I saw the first two movies. You're going to see more dialogue and more interactions between characters, yet still, after I walked out of the movie, I felt that all the characters were weakened. For example, take Katniss Everdeen. Jennifer Lawrence does a great job portraying this character. You know, she is the Katniss Everdeen. She owns up to it. The Katniss Everdeen character in this movie is kind of different from what I saw in the original two movies. Katniss Everdeen is still going through some psychological trauma, but you've already seen this before in Catching Fire installment. The movie almost weakens this character because Katniss Everdeen is no longer the super strong, awesome, violent girl that we've all come to know and love. Instead, she trades in to become the Mockingjay symbol, yet she's very reluctant to take this position anyway. That leads into one of the positives from this movie though. Katniss Everdeen and her interactions between the political beliefs and her job as the main source of propaganda for the Mockingjay is really interesting to watch. I'm not going to try to give too much away, but there is this one scene when some violent stuff is happening, you know, people are dying. Behind Katniss Everdeen is a camera. The cameraman tells her, "Yo, Katniss, this is an awful situation, but you need to make the best out of it. Look at the camera and tell us how you feel. Just look at the camera." And then you see Katniss's face drop. She's thinking, why do I have to talk about this? Don't you see these people getting killed? Don't you see these people dying? Isn't there something else that we can do besides make a source of propaganda? And I thought that that was really cool to watch because then it shows the real humanization of Katniss Everdeen that we've seen before, instead of some just post-traumatic stress disorder girl who's really struggling to even stop crying throughout half the movie. I also didn't like how this movie was divided into Part 1, Part 2 so evidently that it was completely obvious. Taking movies like Harry Potter, it's substantial to divide them into two movies just because there's so much stuff going on. Mockingjay as a novel, there's so much stuff going on as well, so I felt that it was right to divide it into Part 1 and Part 2. The way that this movie was divided into Part 1 and Part 2 was so obvious that I felt like I was paying $9 for an appetizer instead of a complete film. The ending in this movie actually feels like a sitcom. You know, you're left hanging, it feels like to be continued. But it's not a sitcom. You're not only waiting 7 days just for the next episode, you're waiting a few months for the next whole movie to come out. And so thinking about that, I felt that it lacked a strong ending and a strong conclusion where I actually walked out of the movie feeling satisfied. Overall, The Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 1 is a good movie. It does have great parts and it adds to that Hunger Games story. However, the Part 1 and Part 2 could have been done a little bit better and some of the characters were fleshed out more than I wanted. Overall, I give this movie a 7.25 out of 10. I still recommend seeing it and I'm still psyched for seeing Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 2. For more reviews, stay tuned to this channel or visit my Twitter page at MandoReviews. Thanks for watching.